All right, let's go ahead and get started. First of all, thank you everyone for joining today, where MessageGears and Rudderstack are going to discuss the warehouse first approach and why it's the right time. Um, uh, my name is Nick Zeke Lopez. I'm the Senior Director of Product Marketing at MessageGears, and I will be taking my perspective through today. And today I'm joined by Gavin Johnson from Rudderstack. Gavin, are you there?
I am Nick. Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing well. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I'm Gavin Johnson. I lead product marketing at Rudderstack. Prior to Rudderstack, I was in product marketing at New Relic, and prior to that, product marketing at AT&T, working on DirecTV Now and what is now AT&T TV. Uh, I was a consultant for a long time. I did project implementation, so technical project implementations. And prior to that, before all of that, I went to business school, and before that, I was a programmer. So did the dirty work back in the days and switched over to the dark side after business school.
Have led many lives. And most people don't know this, but my headshot I actually took at your house with that background. So I think it's important for the people there to know. Joining me and Gavin today is Rachel Bradley Haas. Rachel, how you doing?
Hey, how are you? I'm doing pretty well.
Awesome.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you. Could you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, so I actually just started a new consulting company with my co-founder Alex, who I believe is here too. And we really focus on optimizing how you scale your data warehouse and how you make it the center of everything that you do. You know, data has become so important across the industry. Not getting the most out of it in every area of the business is a waste of time and energy, right? We want to be able to focus on that data, what the customers need. So we've really been focusing on how you use different tools in the right time, in the right place to make sure that you're scaling that customer experience. So prior to starting that, I worked at Heroku Salesforce, Cisco, and then most recently at Mattermost, which is similar to Slack, but for on-prem. And so really building out their BizOps organization, data infrastructure, and analytics.
Excellent. So we have a variety of perspectives from both of you guys on the webinar today. Just to cover really quickly what we're going to be reviewing today, we're going to talk about, okay, what is a warehouse first approach? And also why is now the time to do that? What has made that possible? Why would a brand or a marketing team or a tech team want to invest or make a warehouse first approach? An example of what that would look like and how, if you're not currently utilizing a warehouse approach, or if you're interested in a warehouse first approach, how you can get started with that and the benefits of doing so. So something to start off with, the idea is that, you know, traditionally, what we see in the marketing space, at least, is you'd have on-premise data stores, right? Perhaps non-performant, perhaps not really accessible. And what you'd be doing there is moving data from those data stores that a brand might have on premise over to their marketing clouds or their various different operative clouds that they can work off of, because that's how they really were able to execute on marketing. The issue, though, is that you almost build up a world of analysis, of tooling, of messaging in each one of these tools. Gavin, I believe that kind of goes back to your experience in one of your previous lives. Is that right?
Yeah. When I was at Deloitte, my job, the projects that I led actually were Salesforce projects, but we didn't lead CRM projects like what you traditionally think of Salesforce. We built on top of Force.com, and we just built full HTML5 applications using Salesforce as the database, basically, in the web server. And we built out full applications for companies, and they'd spend millions of dollars doing this just so they could have all of their customer data and all of the data they need to action on their sales and marketing activities in one location in their Salesforce database. So there was a whole practice inside Deloitte that built out projects like this just because connecting that data was so difficult.
Yeah, at MessageGears, we call that data friction. It's called a million things in different other companies, but what that really leads to is now in these days, right? You almost never have a singular marketing cloud that you're sending data to. You end up duplicating and sending data to, multiple, if not dozens of different clouds. And Rachel, this is where I believe you have prior experience as well. You've seen this happen a couple of places.
Yeah. I think I've actually been on the other end of this, right? So I've led analytics and operations teams who have been working with people trying to access this data. And it's just been terrible for not only me as the provider, but for the customers for us. So when I say customers, I mean internal customers, having the right data in the right places, the different definition coming from Google versus what's in Facebook versus whatnot. Nothing's aligned. You think that you're sending one thing or engaging with a customer one way, it's completely different than somewhere else. And trying to reconcile all of these dispersed systems is absolutely terrible, not only for an engineer or analytics, but also for the end customer. You know, at the end of the day, you want to make sure they're having a great experience. And if they're seeing one thing in one platform and something completely different in a different one, it's really going to kind of show where honestly the breaking points are in your infrastructure.
Yeah, it makes it impossible to calculate lifetime value of a customer or even know up and down for the engagement. Speaking of engagement, it's time for some audience engagement. So we're going to do a poll for you guys here of you know, how many marketing clouds do you copy data to? Feel free. You should see in the panel there the ability to answer back. But so you know, I'll call on Gavin and Rachel while we're collecting data there. What have you guys seen? What are some worst case scenarios? Any monster scenarios you can think
of? When I was at AT&T, wow, I don't know how many different tools they were copying data into to execute on marketing for. I was just in the video group. If you looked across the whole organization, I would guess it's probably like north of 20. But that's just a guess. So, and that's yeah, I know the group that I worked in, we were probably looking at 3 to 4, and we were just one group inside the video org. So yeah, there's a lot.
Wow. Yeah. I just hate personally how, at least at the previous company I was at, it was just like, in order to get anything out there, you needed to send it to Salesforce and then send it somewhere else. And it was all constrained based off of what Salesforce was doing. So it was just a terrible experience because now you're like locked into the product and you have to reformat it. It doesn't fit what our product was doing. It's just a terrible experience.
And it makes people feel like they could never switch or get out of that.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Let's take a look at what our viewers today said. I think a pretty interesting breakdown. So perhaps due to these speakers that we have here, about 1 in 5 of us are in a warehouse first architecture and are looking to promote these kinds of changes. But the majority are in kind of that 1 to 5, almost what you described, Gavin, right? Their group is got between 1 and 2 or 3 and 5 different multiple marketing clouds. And it's funny that the percentages worked out so nicely because as they were collecting, I was seeing some pretty weird ones. But it looks like you know, 1 out of every 10 of us that are here today are stuck in that more than 5 and want help. And so that's who we're working with today. By the way, for the audience, if you ever have any questions or ever for any of us, feel free to call out the panelists or and your question as we go through this and let us know what your thoughts are. So Gavin, can you tell us why, you know, we're talking about a warehouse first approach. What's happened to make that possible? What is that?
Yeah, there's a couple things. I mean, the first thing is just modern cloud data warehouses are much more mature than the ones that they're traditionally have been. You know, traditionally you'd use a cloud data warehouse to store a bunch of data and then use that data for analytics purposes and for reporting. But you can use it for a lot more than that now. They're much faster, they're much more performant. And the cost to use them has gone down drastically too. So if you look at something like Snowflake, like the way they separate compute from storage, it makes it very inexpensive to store a bunch of data on their system if you're only analyzing like the correct data, which most people are, like not pulling huge sets of data all the time. And also these data warehouses are really, really easy to manage. I don't know if you've ever tried to like scale your own data warehouse, but even when you're talking small scale, like once you start like growing past like, I know back in the day it was like 20 gigabytes, you'd have to like start messing around with SQL Server to like do it well. But now there's new databases and stuff, but it's difficult. It's a pain to actually manage this stuff, and they make it really easy. So, you know, that's one thing. And then the next thing is just cloud native applications in general. And the way they're built, the architecture of these applications encourage statelessness a lot of times. So you get these containers or microservices or serverless functions. They're designed and built to be stateless. Makes high volume scaling much, much easier, but it ends up encouraging abstracting away the whole data layer. So basically you'll ship that out to whatever database provider you have a driver for. You want to use MySQL, great. Postgre, great. So, people are making drivers for these cloud data warehouses now too for some of these applications. So it's just as easy as connecting to a regular database now because of the way containerized applications are built. And also, like beyond that, some like kind of people in the cloud native community think that statelessness isn't the greatest idea and want to go more stateful with their applications. And the way they're doing that is by reading to and from basically data warehouses or databases. Basically, it's like straight reads and writes. It's doing an event registry, which is perfect for a data warehouse. Like you can, you're only pulling exact amount of data that you need. You're getting really, really quick, accurate results, and you're only doing reads and writes, so it's really, really cheap. Like that's a perfect example of a way to use a cloud data warehouse. So the way the cloud native applications are maturing or even diverging or branching and expanding is more, in favor of using a cloud data warehouse. So just the way these new modern technologies work and are built encourage the use of this.
Yeah, and with you were describing the reads and writes and going between MySQL and Postgres. I'm very sure Rachel would love to talk us through the pros and cons of which engine we use, but that's for another time
Exactly.
in another state. Instead, Rachel, could you walk us through what a warehouse first approach looks like?
Yeah, and I think real quick to add on to kind of like what has brought us to this place is really that mentality shift, right? So I think as we've gone down this data-driven culture, right? It's like everyone wants access to all the data. So now it's not just marketing, it's not just, product, it's like everybody wants a piece of it. You have customer success wanting to understand that. How do you make sure you're retaining people? So it's like this whole thing of everyone wants access to this data and you really want a single source of truth, right? And so rather than saying, okay, I'm going to send all my data from all of these different sources to everything else where it's like a kind of spider web craziness, like that's utter chaos, right? How are you going to handle that? How does it scale? That's a nightmare to me. So rather than doing that, it's basically collecting all of this data in a scalable format, dropping it in one place, really allowing you to have the analytics and the data team manage that data in a secure, scalable way where you have a single source of truth, single definition, and then sending that out or having something come and read against it. I think the biggest thing is being able to access that raw data or the aggregated meaningful data on top of it to be able to create a data-driven organization, right? And so rather than saying I'm going to send 50 billion events here for some tool that I'm locked into to then do some weird trending stuff that really doesn't apply to your business model, you're allowing the data to come in, having the people that really know the data, access it, model it, make it meaningful, and then making it very easy for other customers of that data, whether it be marketing, sales, CS, everything, access that data and be able to drive, their decisions off of it or have customized segmentation or whatnot. So it's like now everyone's looking at this one warehouse and making decisions off of it in a very quick, iterative way.
Yeah, almost in your getting to the point that you had said where, you're sending 50 billion results away. There are a lot of CDPs, there are a lot of ESPs that they'll put on their homepage, we've activated against 150 billion data points. Be like, why would you brag about that? You made someone send you data out of their warehouse 150 billion times.
Well, and you're paying for every single one of those events too. And it's like, cool, great. Glad I sent you an event that means like nothing at a very granular level, but I have to send you 50 billion of them for you to even derive one piece of value from me. Like that's ridiculous.
It goes into privacy too. Like how, Rachel, if you make a purchase somewhere, do you want that information shared between 20 companies or the place you made the purchase?
Well, and you think about the complexity of when you're sending it so many different places, all it takes is one to go wrong to really screw over your customers.
And so this is kind of why we're here today. And this is, Gavin and I, mine's perspective, where what Rudderstack plays into this on the left side is a lot of that collection. Is that right, Gavin?
Yeah, actually, like from your websites or any of your applications, you can instrument those with Rudderstack, just like you would, a website like you would with a Google Analytics JavaScript snippet, or you can instrument inside of your actual application itself if you need like more consistent data, because sometimes event data from the web can be inconsistent. So if you need like more consistent data on like specific transactions, you can do that in your backend. And you can instrument your mobile apps and all that. And you can send that event data through Rudderstack to any of your applications. We make it really easy to activate in any of the best of breed tools that are out there. And a lot of them already accept event data. It's kind of not a standardized, but an accepted pattern. So it's very, very normal, and a lot of applications use it. We have like, I think over 100 integrations now or something like that. But what we do, and that's like slightly different than a lot of the non-warehouse first competitors, well, all of the non-warehouse first competitors, is we also send that data to your data warehouse. So we build like that customer data lake for you. So you have full access to it on your data warehouse. And we also do ETL too. So like bringing in stuff from like Salesforce and Marketo down into your data warehouse, bring that data in. We have several integrations to do that. So you can like enrich your customer data lake, build more across, and then also push out. I think it's called reverse ETL. It's kind of like the trend that's going for it right now. But the big thing that we do is we bring all that data into your data warehouse, and we build that customer data lake. So you can do smart stuff with it, the stuff that Rachel was talking about.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we look for at MessageGears. So at MessageGears, any brand that has either upgraded into one of the modern data environments that you called out, BigQuery, Redshift, Databricks, Snowflake, we activate on top of that. So if there is a good, and by the way, Rachel, I did love that you had pointed out that it could be, the raw data, but more often than not, a tool like Rudderstack or the data engineers are creating that presentation data of here's the clean look of the customer right there in the data warehouse. That's what MessageGears does in getting that message out. So like you said, whether it be the mobile app, whether it be ads on the website, whether it be emails, text or push notifications, the important thing here is the warehouse first. And what we're saying here really is a lot of these promises are the ones that the CDPs make, that the other ESPs make, and that they say they love your data. But as you guys can probably tell here at the webinar, you have 3 people here that really believe that they're going about it wrong, and not wrong. I'm sure it absolutely serves a lot of the small and mid market, but for many prohibitively expensive or just fundamentally different approach from where they need to be at scale. But there's a lot of reasons that a brand might do this, and we've listed 3 here. Gavin, could you walk me through what improved data management is and what that means?
Yeah. So one of the reasons that you may want to go warehouse first is that it does help you manage your data better. You have better control of your data since your customer data lake, like in the example of Rudderstack, is being built on your data warehouse. But in other warehouse first applications, it could be like a security data lake, like Panther builds. But that data lake's on your data warehouse, so you can secure that data at rest at whatever level you need to. And if you're using a cloud data warehouse, they usually offer pretty high levels of security. Whereas if you're not using a warehouse first application, a lot of times you just have to rely on whatever security they provide. And that security may not be good enough for you. And you may just be stuck with an option you can't really use or fully use, and you really have to like cut back your use on. We give you an option, or a warehouse first approach gives you an option that can be very, very secure and gives you better control of that data. It also eases regulatory compliance. Once again, a lot of these modern cloud data warehouses are already GDPR and CCPA compliant. So when you're storing them, you don't have to worry about that, but not every vendor is. So you have that thing with, because you're bringing into your own warehouse, it can be as compliant as you can make it, versus going with a vendor that is sometimes lagging, especially if you're in one of these more regulated areas. And another thing that especially a lot of our customers like is that it simplifies their customer data stack. Instead of having data stores in multiple different places, it sticks them all in one place in their warehouse, and it eliminates the need to maintain those data stores, right? So, the marketing ops team doesn't need to have their data store they work off of, and which is different than the product ops team that has their own data store, which is different than the sales ops team. It's all in one spot, and you do it based off access. And then going along with that, because you don't have these multiple data stores, you have less duplicated data. Like you don't have to keep sending data from whatever system to your data warehouse to do work on. It's already there. You don't have to send it from Segment to your data warehouse. It's already in your data warehouse because it's built that way.
It's interesting you bring up the regulatory compliance. What we at MessageGears see is that certain industries change or shift, especially in software, slower than others, right? Because shift is more meaningful. So we're seeing now a lot of the financial, banking, and healthcare sectors start to really show interest in that because of what you said, right? Many companies have hopped on the warehouse first. We could call it a bandwagon, but as Rachel said, we're really the first ones to do it. But people are hopping on. But the companies that it might benefit the most are just now starting to get interested, which is something that fascinates me. When looking at the marketing perspective, it's incredible what you can do with your first party data, right? The ability that you have all of the data, all the things that your customers have volunteered you to know about them for better marketing, you have access to all of it all of the time. So you're not sending messages, you're not creating experiences with, 2/3 or half or like a small view of the customer that you might, if you go into your siloed SMS solution or your email solution or your CDP, something like that. It dramatically lowers the cost of ownership of your tech tools. So we talk about using a single copy of data. To Gavin's point, you're not paying, every copy of data is inconvenient, but really every copy of data is upping the amount of you're spending to just store data and do things off of it. And something we're seeing from, I would say, people talking in the industry, from RFPs, it seems these days that every company has a North Star of owning their marketing operational excellence. And that's where they want to be. And the only way to truly do that is through this warehouse first approach. Because if you're not doing that, like Rachel had mentioned earlier, you've got data all over the place and you're relying on all your vendors to be as secure as you are. Rachel, could you then kind of take that a step further and talk about scaling the business logic across your different tools and products?
Yeah. Kind of like you mentioned, in terms of like having different copies of data all over the place, right? I think what ends up happening is if you have all of these different tools and different copies of the data, every time you send it somewhere else, you really have to fit it to what their data model is. And basically that's like saying, if you wanted to use something like segment personas, you have to make sure that everything's attached to a user level to then send attributes and do this and do that. Well, what happens if you don't want to do something at a user level? What happens if you want to market a certain way that's different? Like you're locked in, you can't do it. And so then you're fudging it and then it's a bad user experience. Like it's honestly terrible. Well, like having to do that, not,
Yeah, you sound like you're speaking from experience.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. And so I think one of the things that's really cool is like, you're basically allowing yourself the freedom because you own this data, you own your warehouse, you own your product. You have the ability to say, how does this raw data map to my business? And it allows you to really build out this ecosystem that supports your end-to-end business, that you don't have to fit a square in a round hole or things like that. It's like, no, there's a layer that lives on top of it. It can access that data, make decisions off of it, but it's a single source of truth. Another example is when we were trying to do personas at one point in a previous company, we still had to go and write custom SQL in Segment. And it was like this broken piece. So it's like data over here that means one thing, but then in different tools, you have different, definitions and whatnot. It's just not scalable. And the next thing you know, engineers and analysts and marketing and sales are trying to figure out why a campaign went to 100 people over here and an email went somewhere else to only 99 people. What was the one person? Where's the discrepancy? It's like no one wants to spend their time doing that. And so when you start thinking about unlocking analytics and engineering impact, let them focus on the things and the tools that they're comfortable in, and then allow people like marketing and sales and CS to access it through their tools on top of it. And so you're really just scaling that understanding of data and allowing people to be excellent in the tools that they understand. The last thing I was going to say is, don't even get me started how much it costs to send data. You're talking about copying, but sending data to these third-party tools is insane. And when you think about Salesforce API limitations, how many times have we all hit that API limit and you're just like, cool, guess I can't send data for the next 24 hours. Things like that are just so frustrating to me that it's just so much easier to say, hey, you come and get it from my database. We're not going to send it anywhere. Let's have a single source of truth. Let's have a data governance platform and let's run things off of it. It makes it so much easier. Plus, then if you're doing modular design for a data warehouse, it's easy to like move in a new tool, move out a different one as you grow or as you try to optimize. So another thing is like, if you decide, oh, I'm on Redshift, this isn't great, let's move to Snowflake and do all these different things. All right, you just swap it in, swap out a different tool, all those things. It just makes it a lot easier to move quicker and make decisions faster.
Yeah, especially when you talk about the underlying data storage sometimes being able to just be the same for a different access method.
Yeah.
By the way, we're getting a couple questions on how to get started with a warehouse first. We're going to get to that in just a minute because that is the next topic here. So really quickly, can we talk about what the warehouse first does for the business and what this looks like? To review, to me, a big thing that Gavin and Rachel were saying, we're kind of this fourth bullet point here. which is how much analysis is just easily readily to be done. Gavin, can you speak for a second about this identity resolution, this third bullet here, of what does identity resolution look like in a warehouse first approach, and how is it sometimes beneficial or superior?
Yeah, so identity resolution on warehouse first approach, your identity graph is built on your data warehouse, so you have full access to it. It also means that the algorithms that you apply to that identity graph can include data outside of ones that you'd usually see. So, we keep mentioning segment. We keep mentioning segment because Rudderstack's like primary competitor, the primary tool that we come in and replace is segment. It's an incredibly popular tool. It's known for being incredibly expensive. Those are kind of like the high points. And it's basically a CDP that allows you to connect to a lot of tools very easily. And they don't take a warehouse first approach, and we do. And that's kind of like one of the key differences between us. But for identity resolution, we also allow bringing in data from a lot of other data sources, or whatever data you can get into your data warehouse. Frankly, think about it. If you're doing identity resolution, it doesn't matter how you get the data into your data warehouse. Once it's there, though, because it's there with your identity graph that's already been built by our event stream feature, then what you can do is you can start layering on top of that, adding new models to that take into consideration data that isn't necessarily event-based data. Data that could be from ad campaigns, or just your straight up CRM master data that help you identify better, or identify in ways that give you more information that you can action more appropriately or correctly inside of all of your tools. So with a warehouse first approach, you can do that. With a non-warehouse first approach, you're really, really reliant on that vendor having like source integrations to all the systems you need. And if you need something that doesn't come from one of those systems, then you're kind of out of luck and can't really use that data for identity resolution.
Thank you. That had been one of the questions that had just popped up, because I think that it's intuitive of getting the data in, and then like we said, getting the data out. But that piece of the ability to then resolve the identities, and that being better because you can get as much data as you want in your warehouse, is to me really really important. Rachel, can you talk about the enterprise-wide benefits here of the warehouse first design, and what that means for different people working in tools today that might be frightened by warehouse first design because they're working, they are like Gavin in a past life. Their job is to go into Segment or Salesforce. Can you talk a little bit to that?
Yeah, and I kind of touched on a lot of these points earlier. I mean, they're things that I'm very passionate about, so obviously I had to jump the gun on it. I think the biggest thing is, people probably don't want to be spending a bunch of time on maintenance in the long run, right? You want to be focusing on the strategic stuff. And so rather than trying to reinvent the wheel of people that already know it, like data and analytics, you're now able to say, here's the data I have, what do I do with it? And you're focused on really moving the business forward. What is this data telling me? Now that I have clean data and I don't have to spend half my day validating it and making sure it matches the 20 other tools, what are the things I could be doing with that? What's a new ad campaign? Can I do different stuff where it's A/B testing? Those are different things, especially in the warehouse, that you can easily support now, because it's very easy to say, all right, random generate a number in this table and split out your different things as much as you want. And because it's going to loop back around, very easy to process all of those things in code, right? So it's really cool to see it come full circle. But
quick plug for MessageGears, quick plug for MessageGears randomized A/B testing off your warehouse. Keep going.
Oh, I mean, it's true, right? And so the other thing is like making sure that you have that relevant granularity. I think we've kind of already touched on that, but if you can get that granularity that you need in the data warehouse, rather than having it send like 5 billion events to be able to drive value, then once again, you're not having to build logic into a different tool that's already built. And think about how much time you're gonna be able to spend on doing what you came here to do and want to do and love, rather than saying, how does this map to the business? Like, I'm a data engineer and analytics person at heart. I like doing that. I don't think other people love doing that. It's just part of what they have to do on a day-to-day basis. So let the people that love doing that do it, and you can focus on what you want. Kind of like here, you'll see it's a lot of rapid iteration, I think, is the other thing that's amazing. Instead of having to send massive amounts of data somewhere else where it's like, cool, I'll wait 5 hours for this data to load, or don't even get me started with how long it takes a data engineering team to turn something around and send it to a third-party tool or add a new one. Now you're basically able to just say, hey, can you add this column? Super quick for me to just add a column, a little bit of logic in a table, and then it's ready for something like MessageGears to query against and get that data to you almost immediately. So from my perspective, it's a lot quicker iteration. it's a lot more focused on, next steps. How do we improve this customer experience, and less on why does this number in this tool not match this one in a different tool? That's like the most painful thing across the board for people on both ends of that engagement.
To that point, MessageGears had run a survey about a year ago, specifically in email marketing. And what we found was that people whose jobs were more strategic, people who described their job as being over half of it being strategic or almost all of it being strategic, planning campaigns, talking about the experiences that should happen, overall, overwhelmingly, they liked their experience in email marketing, would do it again, almost like over 88%. However, people whose jobs were not strategic and were more execution, they would, over half said they would not return back to email marketing explicitly for what you said, because they found that more of their time was going in between tools, finding why numbers didn't match, trying to upload data. It doesn't take a CSV, all of those tiny problems that no one wants to spend their time doing. And so it's not just the better messages and better experiences, it's a better team. It's cohesion. And to touch on some of those pain points, and I know we're getting to the bottom of the hour here, so we'll go through this quickly. But if any of these pain points apply to you, right? We've had people say that it takes over a week for a marketer to get a personalized offer into their marketing platform, or if they get a new data point available in their database, something like, the last 7 days of loyalty spend, it's going to take over a month before they can use it in any of their marketing clouds. If you're finding you're spending a lot of money, or even that you're wanting to change, but you think that it'll take months and months and months to get onto another platform, the warehouse approach solves for these issues. The immediate availability of data, the single source of truth of data to know where your engagement and how people are responding to these messages that you're sending out. The total cost of ownership plummets because you're using your infrastructure and not paying someone else to use their infrastructure. And I want to talk a little bit about migration, and because I think that's a big fear. Gavin, can you talk a little bit about what the we'll say today's state might be, and how someone would easily or quickly or even start a migration to Rudderstack and MessageGears?
Yeah. I mean, the way that you generally start something like this, most of our customers are either X-Segment customers or looking at Segment, but even if they're not, even if they're using a standard customer data platform, is you would want to either go off of your instrumentation or replace it. So if you're a Segment user, you can just use that instrumentation with Rudderstack. We have like a super simple migration guide. You don't have to go and do a bunch of stuff and do a bunch of new programming. So you can send data to Segment and data to Rudderstack in parallel. You can try out putting that data into your data warehouse and using a tool like MessageGears on top of it. So you can literally build a POC out for, with our help, with our contact our sales team, and with our help, you can build it out really quickly. It takes very, very little time. If you're not a Segment customer, you have to instrument a few sites. You have to do a little bit of work with your web dev team. But we host it. So we host the actual tool itself, and we don't store any of your data. It all goes to your warehouse. So it makes it really easy for us to be able to do POCs with customers and get things in place and flowing into the data warehouse quickly, and then be able to build a MessageGear POC on top of that to make sure that everything can work right. It's relatively quick and easy, and if you're a current Segment customer, it's really, really easy. Literally, if you have a good data team, it should take them like a day or less to get it going into your warehouse, so you can start validating that things are matching up.
Yeah, I can tell you from personal experience, and I'm sure Rachel can as well from using the tool, like how easy it is. If you have access to the whether it be Facebook or the website, I know MessageGears is a proud Rudderstack user as well for our website. It's actually that easy. I joke, you'd said free POCs and what we'd be willing to do. When you say we, I was almost going to say you don't mean, but we might mean you and me, because you and me could do that. We could go in and do a POC. It's that easy. But Rachel, go ahead.
We have a free tier, so it's not time gated. So you can go in, sign up, try it out, and then expand that into a POC if you want. But it's so easy. We've had several customers come in off the free tier and self POC and just be like, hey, we just want to up it so we get like more features and better limits. Yeah. So yeah, we're super easy to use.
And it's really the ability to do it in parallel. It's not a huge commitment. It's not a switch. It's not you're worried about business continuity and you're going to get fired if you do it wrong. Both of our tools are ready made so that whatever switch you do can be done over time, and eventually, whether it be proved out in one channel or another channel or however that may be, any organization, regardless of where you are today, can get to a warehouse first approach. And I think for me, that's the big takeaway. This is not a city on a hill or some halcyon place where it's a great idea, but it can never happen. This is a reality for many companies and can be a reality for anybody on the webinar today. And so I would say that in closing, that is our big takeaway of if you are still copying data to those clouds, whether you're using a CDP, you're using a remote ESP, it is possible and low cost to get started today. Before we wrap up, Rachel, Gavin, any last thoughts? Any last questions? What are you doing later today? Before we go, what are you thinking? Let's go, Rachel first.
What am I supposed to answer? What I'm doing later today?
No, sorry. Any last closing thoughts before we close out the webinar today?
As someone that's gone through this migration for previous companies and helping current companies go through this, I mean, it's definitely the way to go. It's the way to scale. It's the way to keep people happy across the board, whether you're on the marketing side, the data side, anything, in the end customers, right? I just think, get on this bandwagon as we talked about. Maybe you're not like first tier like us, like getting started with it, coining the term, which I believe we're supposed to give a shout out to Gavin. He coined the term.
That's right.
So yeah, but be one of those companies that's ahead of the curve and really hop on this. I think it will end up saving you in the long run. It takes a little bit of investment, but when I say a little, I actually mean like a little, not like a little. And just see how it works. There's no risk in it. Like we said, you can run it in parallel. We've done that because we have an on-prem solution that we work with. And so we wanted to be careful. You can run it in parallel, try it out, no risk there. So I think you really have nothing to lose by going this route.
That's right. Gavin, anything to add?
Yeah, kind of going those concerns, like we kind of talked a lot about segment customers, right? Super easy to get off segment with Rudderstack. If you're not a segment customer, which a lot of people aren't, if you can use Google Analytics, like if you can instrument your website for Google Analytics, like literally, you can use Rudderstack. We replace what you use for Google Analytics. That snippet, you're replaced with Rudderstack. You can still send your data to Google Analytics and your warehouse. Like it makes it really easy to do all this and like makes your websites way more maintainable too. So it's not hard to do. If you can use Google Analytics, you can use us and you can go like start using this warehouse first approach or experimenting with it.
And I would be remiss if I didn't echo what Rachel said. Gavin, just for everybody here, Gavin is the proud creator of the warehouse first terminology. I don't believe he's copyrighted that at all. But it's because talking to you yesterday, it's how much we feel and how we believe that this is the way to go. Quick plug on the MessageGears side, you don't have to be sending live email messages to get started. Like you said, you could start with a lower cost channel. You could start activating to Facebook or Google or simply getting data out of your warehouse to any one of your vendors. That's what MessageGears is here for. I want to thank my two co-presenters here today, Rachel and Gavin. This was a great time, and I think you could see how passionate we are, not only for a warehouse first approach and a design, but working in a way that makes people happier to be doing what they're doing, that makes jobs suck less, and to be adding more value. And as consumers, all of us stop getting crummy marketing and bad messages because of a problem that could easily be fixed. So thank you everybody for tuning in today. We will be following up with a transcript and a copy of the slides. Please get in touch with any of us, Rudderstack or MessageGears, if you found this interesting. But have a great day, and thank you very much, Gavin and Rachel.
Thank you, Nick.
Bye, guys.